we're going to get started here. We'll have folks that do trickle in as time permits. We are going to kind of pound through our content, get to the meat of the presentation, and allow our Cal State partners and our MAP initiative representatives to give their content so we can record this session and have it for future use during this year of CPL breakthrough in 2023. We need this for professional development on your campuses, but also for legislative efforts. Once we finish, if we are able to get through all of the content with time left, then we will open up for Q&A, a verbal Q&A. As we progress in this presentation, feel free at any given point in the chat box. We may not be able to answer the question, but throw your questions in there so we can follow up after the fact, or we can adjust on the fly and speak to it. We just are not opening up to general verbal Q&A to unmute you so we can get through the content. Our presenters today, myself, Calvin and Weston from the MAP team. Many of you in the MAP cohort know them as some of the tech support, and Calvin as the project expert on the Military Articulation Platform project. We have Jose Lozano, and I missed Elke in here. Elke is the director of the Veterans Resource Center at Cal Poly Pomona, and Alex Ortega. He is Access and Engagement Coordinator at Cal State Fullerton, but if you've engaged Alex, he is a promoter of higher education, specifically transfer into the full Cal State, not just a home teamer with Cal State Fullerton. The areas that we are going to cover today is Calvin and Weston are going to give a bit of a brief on the articulation process and how MAP works. Real briefly, there was a review in the last session, so it's going to be a short clip. We're going to talk about transferring of CPL to universities, and we're going to throw on within the chat some case samples. What we'd really love to do is have you in your local area, in your region, throw in some universities that you've worked with potentially in the past with pathways, guided pathways for our student veterans and active duty military to finish their degrees with CPL. Talk about the application process at Cal State, direct applicants versus transfers, and then some myths and pain points. Big piece that I want to start with before we jump on over to Calvin and Weston. This is the big elephant in the room, the big discussion. And if you were over in the policy discussion in track 3 with Dr. Brent Foster and Shante Guinea and Bob Nash from the California Community College Chancellor's Office, this was brought up. The kind of confusion with the first sentence within Title V, Section 55050, Area D, the first sentence speaking to individual identified courses, and then this last segment, which I always love to bold out and underline, about general education credit as well as elective credit. Many of our student veterans and active duty military are not looking to stay in the same field that their MOS was, that they studied or had coursework in during their time in the military. They want to venture off into another area. So the crypto linguist may want to be an engineering major. Can we apply that to general ed credit when it's a foreign language that your school does not offer? These are the questions that come up and the things that we need to tackle. And I do feel that many counselors and AOs feel there isn't alignment with the first sentence in the Section D and then the latter portion. So we do want to dive into that. We are in dialogue with the ASCCC and the Chancellor's Office. They understand this needs some clarity, either a clarifying memo or an adjustment. But this is a big piece. I will add this to the chat box for your future use on your campus. Executive Order 1036, again, from the policy piece. If you look at Article 4, Area B2, if we do certify for general ed or partial CSU GE or an ADT, they will accept to transfer credit. So it is upon us to transcribe these credits. So as we talk about transfer up to the Cal State, when we do not transcribe credit, that's where the difficulty comes, and that Cal State may have to review that JST itself. That may come up later in the presentation. The UC, we are in conversations. We've had a meeting. We're looking at future meetings with their Chancellor's Office or their Office of the President. Know that they are governed independently, so the state legislature cannot tell them what to do. They can advise and recommend. They have their autonomy on each of the campuses. Now, I will say we have had students transfer and receive elective or PE credit. From my experience, Yet the UC on their transfer application webpage, which I will put on to the chat, they clearly outline that they review JSTs after admission. So you need to hit that 60 unit threshold, admission requirements, not necessarily IGETC, but major prep and admission threshold, and then they will review your JST. It's after acceptance. So that is kind of a misalignment with the CSUs in our system. What they highly recommend at the current status before we move to the CalGETC, but currently, is considering credit by examination. When we use credit by examination and transcribe credit by examination, it shows that we did assess for the theoretical basis, the theory-based courses. After Calvin and Weston present a little bit with MAP, I will throw in a few of the private and out-of-state universities links to show other transfer options. Not that we want to lose our students to private or out-of-state institutions. We want them staying in public education in the state of California as much as possible. Save $1, get great experience, get a great education with a valuable degree at the Cal State or the UC. But we do have some options locally or in close out-of-state institutions on a case-by-case basis. So I'm going to hand it over to Calvin and Weston to show a little bit of MAP and how MAP can actually articulate into general ed, elective, or course-for-course transfer.
What I'll be presenting on for the next 5 minutes will be a continuation from track 1, session 1. So earlier we did talk about the current status of an individual providing their JST to an institution and where they would give them an opportunity to review it. Once the institution has a JST, they have the ability to upload them into MAP. Now, once that JST is uploaded into MAP successfully, what our system does is that it parses all the correct recommendations that have been provided by the American Council on Education. Usually that will be on the summary page of that JST. Now, the next page I will show you will be an example of my own JST that I use for this training purposes. For this matter, I will be logged into basically Norfolk College's MAP system. Now, with that being said, once I successfully downloaded my JST into MAP, as you can tell, it reads my exhibits and my credit recommendations. On the right-hand side here under credit recommendation, it shows you all of my credit recommendations as accumulation from when I entered the military to when I successfully got out as an honorable veteran. Now, on the top, what you will see is we call it default credit, but these are usually the credits that we would provide to students that can be used for Area E. And on the bottom is where we can start doing articulations for what Terrence mentioned earlier, which would be course, area, and elective. On the left-hand side, this is where you'll be able to select the articulations on how you like to proceed. Now, what you're seeing here on the left-hand side is what I showed you initially, which is this is an example of a potential Area E and native GE, and may vary by district. So with that being said, it is up to your institution and district to decide what will be policy and regulation. Now, on the right-hand side, I will show you the 3 ways on how we can articulate course for course, area, and elective. So also, for this purpose, I have shown you 3 different types of JSTs, all different MOSs and rates to provide you diversification. So for example, the first one will be to create a course credit. As you can tell, this individual in the military was military police, right? Criminal procedures. On the right-hand side, you see the credit recommendations for 3 semester hours as a lower division course in the military. Now, this is what we call a course-for-course equivalency, and if we push it forward to the faculty member and articulating officer, and they do approve, this can be designated as a course-for-course credit. Now, next to that will be area credit. So again, this individual here I'm using for a JST is not the same as the military police. Instead, it will be a nuclear individual. Here, since we're doing area credit, I have chosen general physics, a 5 semester hour units at lower level. This is another area where we can select a equivalency from general physics on the JST to a course at the institution. Now, the last portion that Terrence did mention is the elective credits. Now, the elective credits on the right-hand side, you could tell this is my JST that I'm using, and I'm deciding to choose mechanical components at 3 semester hours at lower division units. At this point, MAP can be utilized to select individual JST's recommendations that are in alignment with electives. So these are the three types of courses that we can articulate. Again, let me reframe: course credit, area credit, and also elective credit. On the bottom left, you will see that in some cases, no credit or credits would be given. For example, from a previous track, someone did ask this: upper division if colleges does not offer a BA or BS degree. So on the right-hand side here, you do see there's L and U's. Again, those stand for lower and upper division courses taught in the military. Now, the last one we'll talk about will be...
Hey, Cal,
Yes,
can I
sir, go
step
ahead.
in on that last slide for a second? You know, much ado has been made about elective credit and about how we don't want to just give elective credit. And I firmly agree with that. Course for course or GE credit is paramount. Yet, Calvin and I were working with an institution just yesterday, and they just wanted to do a review of a brand new student educational plan that was created for a student that had 20 years in the Marine Corps and wanted to major in social work at San Bernardino, Cal State San Bernardino. On the educational plan, it showed a significant amount of elective units that were necessary. It was a low unit major, right? Much of his Marine Corps work did not necessarily align with general ed or direct course for course. Some did, but most of it did not. It basically, on the educational plan, showed full 16 units of elective work necessary. That could be a semester or more than a semester of work that could be articulated over from a JST that would save that student, like I said, a semester or more of their GI Bill. So don't just brush off elective work as not useful. It can be very, very useful for many students in low unit majors.
Thank you, Terrence. And the last type of articulation we will do will be for language. So for example, everything you're seeing here is in MAP. It's just the version I showed you previous slide will be the actual student intake module, which would be a little bit easier for you to understand as an interface and a little bit more intuitive. Now here on the left-hand side, I'm selecting a Spanish course from local college. As you can tell, Spanish 1, units is 5. Now, right below it, I'm selecting a ACE exhibit from a specific service member that have Spanish also on their JST. In this case, I decided to choose AR, this person in the Army, 0602-0008. Now, what that is in credit recommendations would be 6 hours in intensive basic Spanish. Right here below, as you can tell, the articulation I'm creating will be for Spanish 1 at local college in the district, and articulating it with an appropriate course from the service member's JST, which will be the 6 hours for intensive basic Spanish. All right, Mr. Terrence, take it away, sir.
We're going to pass it right on over to the Honorable Alex Ortega to talk about the process for application for our military-connected students looking to matriculate onto our Cal State system. Alex, it's yours.
So much. Thank you so much. Before I even get started, it's a real big honor to be here. Thank you, Terrence, for the continued support and all the leaders in the room. I saw you take a drink out of your Dickies cup, and I immediately got flashbacks from COVID. That's all I would see during online. So that kind of made me smile and feel some type of way. So, okay, let me see if we can get this started here. Screen share. And then I'll take the cue from Calvin. If I can get a thumbs up from everybody, if y'all can see that screen. Am I doing that right? All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Calvin. Thank you, Terrence. Thank you for everybody putting this together. CPL Summit and Norco College, real leaders in this space. So it's really an honor to be here. My name is Alex Ortega. I'm the Access and Engagement Coordinator here at Cal State Fullerton. I also am a very proud alumni of the California Community College System, transferred from Santa Ana College to Cal State Fullerton. I say that with a great deal of pride. I'm also a United States Army veteran, served from 2006, 2012. So I look forward to being of assistance today. So the mission statement of this, the CSU Veteran Pathway Session is dedicated to serving student veterans and community partners in the information seeking and application process to the CSU system. This presentation will hopefully provide guidance to prospective students and service providers on the overview of the whole CSU system, the CSU admission requirements, the CSU apply application, which is a whole beast in itself, and then best practices for students transferring over and creating a smooth pathway for all of our service members. So as we said, we're going to do an overview of the system. It is clear, the largest four-year public university system. 1 in 10 employees in California is a CSU graduate, and the mission is very, really direct: opportunity and access to higher education. There are 23 campuses in our system, for the school up north being Humboldt, school down south, San Diego, Cal State Fulton, Orange County, and then really concentrated area in Los Angeles County with a couple of colleges there. One metric I kind of wanted to highlight on the screen is 91% of new transfer students come from the California community colleges, which is, I know a lot of us, you all support so many of the students in that process. So if we look at a regional breakdown, the northern section of California has 8 institutions, central with 5, and then our southern region is the most dense with institutions. So there's about 10 of them in the southern region. So now that we kind of talked about the overview of the CSU system on a macro level, we're looking at it how really can affect and impact our student veterans. So Dr. Marshall Thomas is the director of the Veterans Affairs for the CSU system. He oversees the 23 Veteran Success Centers, also known as Veteran Resource Centers. And clearly the VRCs are the hub of information and support for military connected students on campuses. Another way that the CSU system supports and provides assistance for student veterans are through their VetNet Ally program. If we look at the one to the far left here, it's Cal State Long Beach, middle is Cal State Fullerton, and then the far right, San Diego. And really the idea behind this is the campus awareness program where members and staff of the Veteran Resource Center provide support and kind of military cultural competence to faculty members on campus to provide them resources and support on how to serve student veterans the best way. Now, if we look at admissions requirements, this is where things get a little interesting. So all CSU campuses, primarily use the same admission criteria, but have different policies per campus based on impaction, based on a couple different factors. So please always have the student veteran contact the resource center, the Veteran Resource Center, if they are interested in applying for more specific information on that institution. As far as the standard information, you got to be in good academic standing, 60 transferable units, your golden 4 classes complete, and then meeting GPA cutoff. And that varies between the spring semester and fall semester. Here at Cal State Fullerton, it's a little bit more difficult in the fall because you're competing with first-time freshmen, whereas in the spring semester, you're dealing with transfer students. So a little bit about Cal State Apply. The application window is August 1st through August 30th, and that's for the spring 23 semester, which we missed. And then for the fall, it's opened up October 1st to November 30th. So we're actually in a really prime time for a lot of our students who are interested in applying. Please continue to share that information with them. Please continue to really pump that, because in my job as access and engagement, I get the calls on December 1st saying, when do I apply for fall? And obviously they miss it. So if we can get this information out, the earlier, the better. And then it's $70 per application. And the way that these students can access this application is through calstate.edu/apply. So I host workshops. I run a team here on campus called the Veteran Ambassador Program. And what we really do is we create access and opportunity for student veterans, being really transparent, really open. Cal State Apply, the way that they've done it, I think, with all due respect, is creating a lot of barriers for students. It's creating a lot of issues for students. These students are tasked with uploading their own transcripts, uploading all of their information from every institution, uploading their military credit, which what we're seeing is it's creating a lot of barriers. It's a system that can be difficult for some students to navigate. So yeah, the program that I run, the Veteran Ambassador Program, we really try to eliminate any barriers. And like Terrence alluded to, I've assisted students get into San Diego State, Cal Poly Pomona, Cal State Long Beach, Cal State LA. I really don't mind. I just want to create opportunities for these students. So obviously creating an account, they're going to select the semester that they want to apply for, create an account, and then log in, and we're going to get through that process. So really the most difficult part of the Cal State Apply is the academic information, in my personal opinion, and that's quadrant 2. That's where students have to upload their, provide step-by-step of every class they've taken. And a lot of times, a lot of our students have taken, they've done academic renewal, or they've had incomplete courses. So educating them on how to properly upload their transcripts and apply, I think, is one of the biggest fights that I've been battling with these last couple of years here. But I wanted to provide this visual of the quadrants. These 4 quadrants are the quadrants that need to be complete, and they all need to be green in order for a student to successfully submit an application. If we look at it veteran focused, there are three major portions that separate student veterans from the general population, and it's through the extended profile. That is their first time that they have an opportunity to identify that if they've ever served in the military. And that first question is extremely important because once it's submitted, it's kind of locked in, and then that will follow over with other aspects. So if we look at the first image to the far left, the second question, that's when they'll have the opportunity to first identify as United States military veteran. And then if we look at the second image, this is where they'll be able to indicate your anticipated military status at the time you enroll. So a lot of our students, you know, whether they're active duty at Pendleton or whether they're in their guard or in the reserve, this is their opportunity to identify that they are veterans and what status they'll be in upon separation and by the time the enrollment opportunities kind of come forward. And then in the third one, which I think is so critically important, is their DD Form 214. A lot of students kind of skip this step because they feel like they've already identified early on in the process that they're a veteran. But I always urge our students to add their DD Form 214. I think it's very imperative that they get it in early and often so that they kind of get put in the batch of, you know, veteran identification. And that's through the final quadrant under documents. And this is what I think what we're all here for, right, is the JSTs and military credit. So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about what the student is seeing on the CSU side. So I put the visual directly from the handbook of the CSU system, which I think is very important for us to all know and kind of identify. But in regards to military credit, I think it's page 14. I do a lot of these, but page 14 in the book, it's applicants can upload copies of their DD Form 214 and JSTs in the document area. And then credit awarded for the military service and training is not entered under transcript entry. So that's a little bit confusing verbiage for a lot of our students. So I think it's something that we highlight. And then campuses will review the uploaded documentation and request official copies later on in the process. And if we look at the coding, right, and this is where we see a lot of students either not add it or make a really, really big mistake, which can eventually lead to a denial of an institution. So the course code would actually be written in, and it's military. The course title is right there, DD 214. And then under subject, it's special topics, and then the amount of credits. And it kind of looks basic, right? It kind of looks like it's a standard, but we're seeing so many of the students not enter this, which eventually leads to their denial. And it's a pretty hard thing to see. Also, we want to ensure our students click that transferable button to the far right. Now, one thing I think the CSU, the Cal State Apply, one thing I think they're doing really good is providing resources and services for our students. But I think when I talk to them at the macro level, chancellor's office, the utilization of these resources are just not there. They're not being utilized like they should be. So if we can continue to, let our students know that there is a help center. And if we look at the image in the far left right here, it really gives them a breakdown for each major thing. So whether that's transfer coursework entry, whether that's transfer application guide or top do's and don'ts, those are the three primary things that I think would benefit a lot of our students having access to. They also have a hotline that you can call where you directly speak to a person that has a visual on their account to kind of walk them through next steps. All they would need to identify is their CSID number, which is in the top right underneath the name. So if they provide that number, the hot link is able to log in and see in real time what the student sees, which I think is a great resource, not only for the students, but service providers as well. I like to keep things really simple for our students. So green is good, right? Greens are thumbs up, that means go. And then when things are not completely green, that means we have an issue here, that there's something that needs to get looked into. So I have an incomplete and a complete. The objective for the team that I lead when we do these workshops is to make sure students successfully complete an application and submit it to the institution of his, her, or they's choice. And then again, the resources and assistance. For the Veteran Ambassador program that I run, I do these workshops where I literally go to Google, I type in CSU Apply all the way to completion of the application. So we've seen a big uptick in these services being utilized. If we look at an institution like Cal State Fullerton, they no longer offer CSU Apply workshops. there's only a video that they provide online. And for a lot of our student veterans, being able to speak to someone or being able to get help in real time, I think is very imperative. But here are a lot of the resources. They're broken down by campus, and then counselors, and then FAQs. What's really cool about the resources for the Chancellor's Office in the CSU, if you click the VRC tab, it will direct you to every VRC direct link, which I think is something that they've improved on. And then again, this is the number. So I think this is the biggest number that would benefit you all service providers for any student. This 857-304-2087 number is my lifeline. I call it almost every day of the semester when I'm working with students through the application, but they're very knowledgeable, very supportive, and they provide a lot of resources for our students. And then let's stay connected. I would love to provide workshops for any of your institutions, any of the students that you work with. We provide them on Zoom. I actually have one coming up November 3rd, 3 p.m. But if you want to email me, if you want to add me on LinkedIn, and if you would like for me to be a resource or a service to any of your students, I please ask you to do that. As a student veteran myself, thinking about my experience transferring from community college, if it wasn't for other student veterans or other people that sat down with me and broke it down Barney style, I don't know where I kind of would be today. They really provided me that support. And one last thing I want to leave you with, community colleges do a great job at keeping everything in-house at their VRC, right? We provide them counselors, we provide them resources, we provide them food, we provide them all these resources. But if I can honestly say one thing that we can do better, when it's time to transfer them, when it's time to prepare them to transfer, we say, go to the transfer center or go outside of the VRC. And that's difficult for our students because they found a safe haven in our VRC. They come to us for everything. So if you would like me to be that resource where I go to your VRC, whether in person or on Zoom, I don't care what school they're going to, whatever school they want to go to out of the 23, please allow me to be an ally. Please allow me to be a service to you all and our students. And that's all I got. Big shout out to Calvin. We actually visited Norco College the other day. Thank you for all you're doing, Terrence, and the rest of the team, Weston and everybody else. And I'll be here if anybody has any questions or any concerns at all, Terrence.
Thanks a ton, Alex. Yeah, I bet there will be some questions towards the end of this, and watch that chat box. And be careful with that email, man. When you spread it around, they're going to start knocking on your door. I think it's a good thing for Alex, though. He loves the work, and he's got a good team too. So I got to give props to his team.
Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. So going to hand the baton off to some superstars in the CPL arena. Many of you know me from like 2016, 17 in my work with CPL, and I've become a complete gadfly with policy and with kind of, shaking the trees, getting some credit for our students. But I'll tell you what, these guys have been doing it way before me, and their work, it's a testament. If you're up at the Chaffee, Mount Sac, Citrus area as a community college, those pathways into Cal Poly Pomona have opened wide because of Elke, Jose, Dean Nelson, several folks on that campus, but Elke and Jose have really taken the helm. I'm going to toss in their test link as well. Thank you to Kiara for putting in Channel Islands. I'll toss in Pomona's. I was waiting on it because they're the big dog, but I'm going to hand it off. Elke, Jose, the floor is yours.
Can you see the slide? Perfect. Good morning. My name is Elke Spati. I'm the director for the Veterans Resource Center here at Cal Poly Pomona.
And I'm Jose Lozano, the University Articulation Officer.
And we're here to talk about credit for partner learning and the student veteran experience at Cal Poly Pomona. Let's see. So I want to talk about a little bit about the admissions process because as Alex was mentioning, each campus has its own specific standards. So I wanted to give a little bit of background and context about how student veterans experience military transfer credit as they begin the admissions process here. Here at Cal Poly Pomona, as prospective students contact the Veterans Resource Center, we encourage them to do pre-admission advising. Pre-admission advising is very important because it'll let the student veteran understand what the admission requirements are for the specific major that they have of interest, and it also let them know ahead of time whether they're meeting those admission requirements. We do also take a look at the military joint services transcripts. So we want to make sure that the students understand where they're at. So this will give them an informed, I would say, pathway in regards to whether they should be applying to Cal Poly Pomona at that point in time, or whether they have some more work to do in order to meet those admission requirements. In addition, Cal State Apply is really, really important for student veterans and military dependents to self-identify on there. It's our way for the Veterans Resource Center to stay engaged and connected with them, especially through the admissions process. If they're missing any documentation, if they're needing assistance through the process, we're here to support, but we can't do that unless we self-identify. DD-214s is very, very important, as Alex was mentioning. They need to submit that. It's part of the admissions process. It is our way of verifying that they are a veteran. We do have some students that unfortunately misidentify themselves, and so we have to make sure that we categorize them accordingly. So making sure that they submit the documents that we need to verify their status. Submission of JSTs. We encourage community college partners to, if the student veteran has a JST that's, affiliated to the degree path that they're trying to go on, please encourage them to consider the JST in submitting it as admission requirements. I also want to talk about how the VRC is also a partner in the admissions process. Here at Cal Poly Pomona, we work as a team, and that team consists of the Veterans Resource Center, the Office of Admissions, and the Registrar's Office in regards to military transfer credit recognition. We are part of that process. We're pulled in certain scenarios, and we'll talk about about that later in the slides. So for enrollment, this is once they've been admitted here at Cal Poly Pomona. Say, for example, they didn't say anything about their JSTs on the admission application. So now they're here at Cal Poly, and how do I apply for my military transfer credit recognition? Well, we have something called the transfer credit guide that we provide to our student veterans, which outlines how they can get their transcripts, what type of credit may be available based under DD-214, what type of credit may be available for Defense Language Institute and so forth. So having a checklist for us helps guide them on the path that they need to take to request that type of credit. In addition to that, on their student portal on Bronco Direct for us, which is PeopleSoft, they will be placed, a checklist will be placed on their to-do list to request a JST if they haven't submitted one yet. It's not required right now, but it is. We strongly encourage them to do so. It will be a requirement in the future. Once the student submits a JST, the university will notify them that we received it. On that in the message, they're going to be notified that a preliminary evaluation of the joint services transcript will be completed. That once the JST is completed, the evaluation is completed, the findings will be posted on their student portal. They can see that under transfer credit report. And now Jose will talk about more about articulation.
So we have quite a few articulation agreements that we have established, and those articulation agreements are published in our TESS, the transfer evaluation system. And Terrence is going to put that link there for you. That is primarily where we publish all the agreements. We also use the military guide, and we're transitioning into using that more because it has so much more information. And if you don't already know, the military guide does have a workflow for you to be able to forward on a review to your subject matter experts. We do award specific course credit when it's specific to the major. So even though we may have an agreement out there for a specific course, if it doesn't apply to the major, there's no sense in giving them that credit because it's basically elective credit. And as we all know, awarding elective credit really is not helpful for the student. The only time it could be helpful is if they're needing units just to be admissible, like the 60 transferable, or if their major is one that has a lot of unrestricted electives, and that's where those come in handy. So we do a thorough review of that JST, and then we compare it against their program and see what is available out there. And at the same time, we also send off new requests to be reviewed based on that student's JST. And we have a good rapport with our subject matter experts or department chairs here at Cal Poly Pomona, who are very aware of the JSTs and how they work. As a matter of fact, we've been very blessed that we have a faculty member that is an ACE evaluator, and he has been through that process and he's very supportive, and that's in engineering technology. So just like every other institution at the CSU, we awarded 3 units for Area E, and now it's just for the completion of boot camp or basic training. We're no longer requiring the DD-214 to award that. And we also award 3 extra elective units if it's needed for their major by way of the DD-214. And for commissioned officers, we have an additional 9 units. Rarely do we see those if they're commissioned. Likely they're probably going to go for their master's or doctorate, or they make a career out of the military. So we rarely see those, but we have that in our policy. This here, what you're seeing is just a snapshot of all the articulations that we have in place for not just for the American Council of Institutions, but for other military affiliated institutions that we frequently get from our, the students that transfer to Cal Poly Pomona. And as you can see, most of them are GE area, but that is a lot better than elective credit. And we're constantly working to increase our course-to-course articulation. And as you know, though, with military courses, there's recommendations sometimes that just don't translate to a course. And just elective credit is what ends up being awarded, but again, we don't award it unless it's needed for that student. And what you're seeing for the Defense Language Institute there, the little footnote with the plus, in the test system, the DLI, they have like a generic course to represent the first semester, second semester, third semester, fourth semester of that foreign language. So we have 4 different foreign languages that we offer here at Cal Poly Pomona. So that's why it's multiplied by 4, and that's how we get the 24 GE area agreements. And this MPA, the Masters in Public Administration, this is something that, to be honest, we've been doing it even before the revised CPL policy from the CSU. And this is credit based on experience. So for veteran students that are majoring in the Masters in Public Administration, that major requires an internship. And that department has agreed to award credit for that internship course by way of their experience in the military. So they verify that with the DD-214 being an honorable discharge, and then they get credit for this course. So in essence, it's credit by experience for their work experience having served in the military. Elke can tell you a little bit more about why being an honorable discharge is good enough for them to get credit for this course, because she is herself a graduate of this program and she knows what's required.
Well, folks forget that serving in the military, it is a federal, department. It's a federal agency. And so being able to successfully get an honorable discharge means that you're able to navigate that bureaucracy quite successfully. So being able to show that to the instructors that you have prior work experience that's comparable to public service, right? It's meaningful. It brings value to your degree and your time in service.
And also, as you all know, that we are now required to honor whatever CPL is assessed by the community college and transcribed on the transcript. We take that and we will apply the articulation agreements for that community college course that is transcribed on the official transcript. So that's how it's going to work. I have not seen one come through our office. That doesn't mean they're not coming or that they're not out there, but we really are not going to unpack something that's already been assessed by the community college and on your map, the platform that you guys use at the community college. We're not going to unpack that. There's no need to do that because the policy clearly states that we are simply to look at that course and apply the agreements that are already in existence for that CSU, for Cal Poly Pomona on the TESS website. If there's an agreement there, or if there's an agreement on assist for that course that's been put on the transcript, we're going to articulate it to the equivalent Cal Poly course based on those agreements. And again, there's no unpacking. The only thing that we are going to be looking for is to ensure that, you know, we're not giving extra credit. So for example, if the community college transcribes credit for prior learning based on the JST, we know that that came from the JST. So we don't want to over award units or the same or different course for that same descriptor, military course or occupation. So that's the only thing we have to work out on our side, but no unpacking, no looking under the hood.
Jose and Elke, if I could jump in right there, I put in the chat, I put a lot in the chat, but that's one of the pieces that we continually keep getting asked by the campuses that are fearful, even looking at, you know, a social and behavioral science course for a military history, or a nuclear submariner that's going to get a basic physics to clear physical science, a language. People are really fearful of this at our level because we don't want to hurt our students. But if that student is tracked into the Cal State, it's clearly written in Executive Order 1036 that there is not unpacking when the student is partial or full certified or has an ADT or it's transcribed. That is the unpacking is not going to happen. And it's so common where it's in a different major than what their MOS was, that they're diverting into, say, STEM, but they have some foreign language credit. So it's not even within a major area typically. So I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's huge for the field. We've met with San Diego State, with you folks, with other Cal States, and that continually comes up. Why aren't you transcribing it more? Why aren't we seeing it more? So you hit on an important theme.
That is very important, and it's important that we are all consistent at the CSU in honoring that. And I think what will be challenging is on the community college side is to transcribe, say, credit for GE, because, you know, how is that going to look? It's not going to be a course per se, but it's just credit for GE area C in the humanities or area B4 for math. But it doesn't translate to a specific course at the community college. So how is that going to look? However that's going to look, we are going to just simply transfer it over as whatever it says.
I appreciate it. So folks, we have about 5 minutes left and they have a couple more slides. So let's let them get through the next couple slides. My apologies for interjecting there. Let's see if we can get through it. And this session will close out in 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay,
Great.
So we just want to share a specific example that we had this past fall semester, and how the Veterans Resource Center, the Office of Admissions, and the Registrar's Office collaborate to help in processing an admissions application, specifically with the Joint Services transcript. We had a student veteran apply for fall 2022 as a first-time freshman instead of as an upper division transfer. That student made that mistake on the application, so now they're being evaluated as an upper division transfer, and they're short 60 unit requirement, and they're short with the golden 4, specifically areas A1, A2, and B4. So the Office of Admissions checks in with the Veterans Resource Center to say, hey, is there something we're missing here? Is there any credit for joint services transcript because the student didn't put anything on their admission application regarding their JSTs? So we connected with the student. We got the joint services transcript. We worked with the registrar's office to evaluate it. What we found out was that the student had 42 units that were available, and of those 42 units, A1, A2, and B4 were met. And that's with established articulation agreements that we had in place. And then we identified courses that we can actually submit for review, and they were established based on that review. So we encourage you to, encourage your students to take, put these things on their admission application or come for pre-admission counseling, so we know ahead of time to work with the student and to guide the student.
And folks, I don't want to gloss over that, even though we don't have much time. A1, A2, B4, and 42, that is massive. So let that sink in.
That's towards the degree, yeah. And the student was admitted.
So here you're seeing an example specifically of what was articulated based on this student. And the golden 4, those 3 golden 4 are huge, because you don't normally see, especially area A1 or A2. or before. Those are not ones that we normally see articulated out there, but we were able to do that. And it's not just for this student, any other veteran student that brings this course will get this credit. And you can see the top course here is your physics entire series for that occupation right there. The engineering majors don't necessarily need the entire series. They only need that first course, but they get all that credit. And specifically, the third course there, ETE 2011 lab, that was specific to the major. So we accomplished a lot, not just for this student, but for any other student moving forward. We publish all of our articulation agreements and tests so that everybody knows and so that they can properly advise students.
Questions?
With the minute and 30 seconds, do we have any hands raised or any more questions in the chat box? Thank you, Alex, for fielding the question in the chat from Colin. Folks, I hope this gives you a little bit more strength, a little bit more confidence in your students transferring up to the Cal State system. Again, it's well over 80 and some years over 90% of their students were our students. So we want to make sure that we're aligned, as Jose and LP were outlining. And when Alex sees these students and the students nervous about Area A1 when they were instructor, yet they're a STEM major and they need that Area A1 cleared to go to San Diego State, we need to have the confidence that we can transcribe that and move the student along and get them to San Diego State sooner. All right. With that, thank you so much, everyone. Our presenters from the Cal State, you guys are amazing. We love partnering with you. Thank you for taking care of the students that are near and dear to our heart. See you in the general session, everyone.